Okay, so my favorite advice is actually from I call her the godmother of self compassion. She's a woman by the name of Kristen Neff, and it really is basically in a paraphrased way. It is you're gonna have bad times. Be kind to yourself. Be compassionate to yourself. Don't beat yourself up when things are going sideways, because that's not going to make anything any better. Just stop and be as kind to yourself as you might be to somebody that you really care about. That, I think, for me, because I was kind of born one of these deep feeling kind of people, and when things go south for me, it's really hard uh, to remember this self kindness idea. But when I can remember it, it makes a huge difference. So that would be my best advice.
Awesome. So Kurt Rosengren, founder of the Rain Ripple River idea. When did you read this? Like, at what point in your life did it hit you?
Let's see. This would have been, um, I suppose 2015. It maybe the book came out sometime around there, and it was interesting because I was listening to the book, and the book is called Self Compassion, and she's a self compassion researcher. She has kind of led the charge on this whole idea of self compassion as something that we really need to tap into, and I was listening to the book out on my walks for exercise and what have you, and I at one point I was like, I need to just sit down and listen to this so that I can take notes. And then I thought, hang on, she's already done that. I can just buy the book, and so I ended up buying the book and highlighting it up, and so Kristen Neff, and then there's another guy by the name of Christopher Germer, who also has written some self compassion books. Both of them, I think, are hugely beneficial to people. So if there was just one superpower that I could magically bestow on people, it would, including myself. It would be just the ability to when things are hard, when things are challenging, when things are falling apart, whatever it looks like, to be able to just step back and go, I need a little bit of kindness for myself.
So I mean, that's honestly so simple when you say it, but it is so hard in practice. Why is that, Kurt? I mean, why do you think that is for you at least, man? I'm not looking for you to prognosticate in the world here, but for yourself, because I struggle
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Well, I I have ideas on both of those. For myself, I am a recovering perfectionist, and I think that is just something that naturally happens. That anytime anything is less than perfect, which is always, uh, then it's easy to it's easy for many of us just to default to beating up on ourselves, and that certainly has been the case with me. I've got I'm much better now than I used to be, um, but I had just this absolutely brutal inner critic, just and in the course of some kind of self exploration, one of the things that I was exploring was this idea of identifying the voices in your head and naming them and kind of creating characters out of them. And my self critic was inner critic. I named him Brutal Bart, and he's this squat, hairy little guy with these black leather pants, no shirt, barrel chested kind of guy. He's like an executioner. He's got kind of the executioner's hood, and and the cat of nine tails with barbed wire, and he has no interest whatsoever in has no interest whatsoever in guiding me to something better. He just wants to punish me for being such a fuck up. Oh, sorry.
It's
I
okay.
hope I can swear because I just did, and it's live. He just wants to, he just wants to punish me, and so um, that is, and just being able to recognize that voice and say, "Oh, there's Bart again," was a helpful thing. But then pairing that with this idea of, this is really, you need to not just stop beating up on yourself, but being kind to yourself is actually a great next step.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's so
Oh,
interesting. Oh, keep
my
going.
my lip reading is. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a
Uh-oh.
minute. I'm wondering if, because I hear nothing. This is the beauty of live. Did another thing just take? No, I
Kurt,
don't
are
know
you
why I
still
don't
there,
hear you.
brother? Do you hear me now?
Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay.
I hear you just
Um,
fine, bro.
let me let me see. Okay, it says mute. Everything's good there. I hear nothing.
Nothing, nothing.
Okay, I'm going to go wild and see if this works. This is on the fly problem solving at its best. I'm just going to take.
Did you hear
Okay,
any of that?
hang on.
Kurt, do you hear me now?
Okay, I can hear you. Can it's going to be a different speaker now. Can you hear?
I can hear you fine. I hear you
Okay.
fine, man.
All right. Well, there we go. That was a perfect example of one of my favorite things to talk about. I just spun a top there. One of my favorite things to talk about, which is the messy imperfection of being human. Um, and I think, and so this again, to the why is it that any of us default to this being nasty to ourselves? I think that I think that there is this idea that we can achieve some superhuman state, and it is constantly being fed to us, whether it is through the advertising that we have or whether it is through even something as positive as the personal development messages that we consume. There is this non-stop just drumbeat of you're not good enough, but if you just do this you'll be good enough, but then we just don't quite measure up, and then we're like, oh god. And one of the things that I talk about is what I call conditional enoughness, and that is this idea of I'll be enough when, right? And I'll be enough when I get this watch. I'll be enough when I don't lose my temper in this situation. I'll be enough when I'm perfect. And even if we get even if and so there's like this hole that we're trying to fill, right? I'll be enough when, and we get that message all the time. You'll be enough when whatever it is. And so that's one of the reasons that I'm really so committed to talking. I love the aspirational stuff, and and there's so much potential of what you can be, and all of this. But man, being human is messy, right? And let's just normalize that. Let's just say, yep, that's what happened. Okay. Yep, fell on my face there. Yep, I didn't do that as well as I'd like to have done. I can be kind to myself while I do that. I can then turn my attention to where I'm going, or what I aspire to, et cetera, et cetera. There's so little talk about the soft underbelly of the human experience where we just feel vulnerable and not good enough, and all of these things. It's so normal for people, but we think it's wrong when we experience it. Okay, your turn.
No, that's a very interesting piece of that because I hear a couple things there just to unpack. One, the conditional enoughness. That's so interesting. It's conditional enoughness, conditional happiness, right? Anytime we put conditions on things, we struggle because we don't get to experience the now. We end up future forecasting so much that it ends up hurting us. So let's talk a little bit more about that. And then I've got more to unpack there of what you said, because I think that's important to your point. I think be enough now because we are enough now, and this is all we can be right now. So how do we, Kurt, I know that you've coached a ton of people on this. How do we do this, right? How do we coach ourselves to be enough right now?
Well, I think the first thing is recognizing that we are saying that we're not. That's that. So often, what's going on is there's this chorus in the back of your head saying "You are not enough," but we don't notice that it's there, right? And and so if we can just say, "Oh, okay, I've got this voice in my head that or this message that's looping that says you're not enough. Do this so that you'll feel like you're enough." Um, and recognize that it's not it doesn't mean you are singularly broken. It is such a common, especially in the culture that we live in, it is such a common thing to feel like we don't measure up. And so just recognizing, oh, okay, I'm having this part of I'm having this part of this messy imperfect human experience. So first acknowledging, um and and then I think one of the pieces of the puzzle is just coming back to right here right now of what am I experiencing, because one of the things you were talking about, the not being able to experience right what's going on right now. um one of the ways that I describe it is right now tends to be, if we're just hanging out right now, right here, right now, tends to be a place of relative peace, unless we are hopping out of the way of a bus or running away from a bear or whatever it is. Right here, right now tends to be a place of relative peace. The trouble is we do this time traveling, and and we bring, as I always joke, that the present is getting a little bit crowded because we get, here we are in the present with what's actually happening, and then we bring these ruminations about something that happened in the past, or these worries about something that happened in the future, or these thoughts about this person who is not in the room with us, and so we bring all of these things into the present moment, and then suddenly it's just this churning, and there's nothing of the here and now almost that we get to experience because we're so churned up with all of this. So another thing is just to recognize, um, when we are overcrowding the present moment, and work on just, and then as far as how do you come back to the present moment, is that kind of part of the question? How do you come back to the present moment? Lots, the whole genre of mindfulness is kind of the answer to that. But one of the things that I love just as a practice is just physically, what am I feeling right now? The pressure of sensation of my butt in the chair, or my feet on the floor, or stroking the back of my hand and feeling that, because that physical sensation always happens right here, right now. You will never have a physical sensation that is happening in the future or the past or in the other room, right? And so even just something as small as that, as a reminder of come on back. And I think come on back is really a powerful mantra. Um, and one of the things that one of and it's, I think, something that acknowledges just our inherent propensity to get lost. And it's like a meditation. We have this feeling that we're supposed to clear our minds and sit there in silence. I have got the noisiest meditations you ever want to meet. And I mean, I have wonderful meditation practice, but I'm frequently marvel at, for the last 20 minutes, I've just been having this big old conversation. And one of the things that can be really helpful is just kindly, like you'd talk to a little kid that's really lovable but a little errant. It's like, come on back. Oh, you got a little lost. Come on back. And I think that in so many situations can be really powerful.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. The reminder to ourselves first to be kind, and then second that right here is all we have. So come on back when we're lost. I think that's beautiful. So your your new venture, for lack of a better term, is Rain Ripple River. So let's unpack that because I think that's very interesting. And when I looked at it, I wasn't quite sure what to expect, right? Because if I follow you, if you write something, I'm going to read it. So talk to us first. Let's unpack kind of what the words mean, and then maybe we'll break them down and go a little bit deeper on each of them. So Rain Ripple River, hit me.
Sure. So it really is the outgrowth. If I took a little bit of time, I took a little bit of time away just to let things percolate and say where I was burned out, and COVID had happened, and I just wanted to say, where do I want to go? Where am I really feeling called? Because I've just been going and but what is it that's really calling to me if I just come on back and take a pause? And what came out of that, it wasn't really a surprise, but it was a good reinforcement, was this idea of changing the world from the inside out, is how I describe it. And it is it's a combination of three pieces of the puzzle. The first piece is the inner game. So uh, all change happens at some level. It starts with the individual, and so if you want to maximize the potential for positive change in the world, that has to be a piece of the puzzle. And it happens to be the piece of the puzzle that I find most inspiring is the individual piece of it. Second piece of the puzzle. So you've got the inner game. Second piece of the puzzle is impact. So that's the difference that we have the potential to make, and the difference we each have the potential to make is mind-bogglingly huge. I think about it a lot, and I still can't get my head around, just from because of not only the direct impact but the ongoing impact of the ripples from the positive effect that we've had that we'll never know about. So I'm inspired by the impact that we have the potential to make, and then interconnection is the third piece of changing the world from the inside out, which is basically, okay, you've created these ripples, and the interconnection is really where those ripples can join and create the waves. And so this is con- community and connection as really an amplifying force for the impact that we're able to have. So in thinking about this, inner game, impact, and interconnection. And I started thinking about, well, what I really want to do is I've been doing coaching around these things for the last 20 years, and I really want to create some kind of vehicle that I can start that I can I'll continue the coaching because I love doing it, but I want to create a vehicle for education. And so this is online courses and that kind of thing. And so what came out of that exploration was this rain ripple river. And so rain is the inner game, right? Rain is the individual raindrop that symbolizes each individual one of us. Ripple, obvious, that's the impact that each of us has the potential to make. And then ripple is the combined power and force and potential of all of those raindrops and all of those ripples together to have a positive impact in the world. And so that is, so the rain part of that is really, how do you one of the ways I joke about, I want to write a book titled "How to Thrive as a Messy Imperfect Human Surrounded by Messy Imperfect Humans in a Messy Imperfect World," right? And so the rain piece is, how do you do that? How do you move from this being gripped to thriving and having access to the best of your inner resources, et cetera, recognizing that it's an ebb and flow, and don't white knuckle that, but how do you spend more time there? And then the impact is, how do you make a difference? I think one of the ways that we sell ourselves short and really sell the world short is that we think of making a difference as this lofty kind of thing. Either we're doing this amazing thing that has this huge impact, or at the very least we're carving out time in our day, in our weeks, to be able to volunteer, etc. Maybe we're writing a check to a charity, and it's very limited how we think of making a difference. I think of making a difference really much more from an everyday impact perspective. One of the things that I talk about is creating what I call a ripple legacy. Ripple legacy is the cumulative impact of the choices you make and actions you take, both immediate and ongoing, for the rest of your life. For your entire life, because just by showing up in the world, you're making some kind of difference, right? We can't not make a difference. And so we're creating these ripples. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative. And so the question with this ripple legacy, it's not, you don't get to say, I'll create a ripple legacy later when I have more time. You're creating one. So the question is, how conscious do you want to be about the ripple legacy that you create, and how conscious do you want to be about the opportunities that surround us 24/7 to create ripples just by the way we show up in the world? So that's one of the pieces. And then the interconnection is just, it's inspiring and motivating and energizing to be in community of like-minded people. And so, we are bombarded with a vision of the world that doesn't work, right? I mean, it just is not working. I don't think anybody is going to argue that, yeah, this is really working quite well. And so one of I'm just looking at, I've got my little little cheat sheet for all of the things that are at the core of what and so I was just going, okay, so it's an approach to life that feeds more of what's right in the world, one choice, one action, one interaction at a time. And I was not having immediate grasp of that, so it's like, oh, I'm just going to go to my cheat sheet. But I want to feed more of what's right in the world, and there is so much potential to feed more of what's right in the world at the individual level and at the impact they can make, and ultimately with the connection and community that's possible there. So that's my short long, or long short, or maybe it was just long description of that.
It's beautiful. So rainriverripple.com is the website. So let's talk about that positive impact, and let's shrink that down. One of the articles you recently wrote is how to be a mobile point of positive impact. That really made me think, and I actually shared it on Twitter today because I think it's super powerful. So let's talk about that, Curt. Let's unpack that. How do we become a mobile point of positive impact?
Yeah, well, it really boils down to, we're having an impact whether we realize it or not. And so just by going through our days, we are having an impact on the people that we meet. We're having an impact on how we show up in traffic. We have an impact on the purchase decisions that we decide to make or not make. And so there are so many small pieces that are available. So just for example, I mean, I think you're masterful at this. You have this gift for just making people feel really good, right? And you're positive and good energy, and you're interested in people, and boy, does that go a long way towards making people feel good, right? So just a small interaction with you can have the potential to maybe not change somebody's life, maybe it changes their day. And maybe in their day they're nicer to somebody, or they come up with a solution to a problem that they wouldn't have otherwise because they're in a better state of mind, and so they've got more resource access to the resources in their brain, right? And just something as simple as giving somebody an authentic compliment. One of the things that I played with for a while was this experiment of I called it setting my compliments free. And so for a period of time, I was like, anytime, because we have these positive thoughts in our heads about people all the time. That's a nice sweater. You've got great eyes. That was really great how you handled that difficult customer, whatever it is. But it's just a thought that pops up and doesn't really occur to us to share it most of the time. And I was like, what would happen if I just committed to sharing the positive thoughts that popped up in my head uh, as I'm going about my day? And it was just, and the reaction to it was like, some of it was like, okay, why are you telling me that? Some of it, people would light up, and some of it, it would instigate a conversation around whatever it was, etc. But it's just a really easy way. We're already there, right? It doesn't take a big bunch of extra effort to open our mouth and say this positive thing and then move on, right? And things, I use this just as a little example of the things that we're surrounded with every day as we're going through our days. Even just something as simple as sh- telling or showing somebody that you believe in them. Huge. I mean, it's a simple thing, but it's amazing what an impact it has. And so being a mobile point of positive impact is really about recognizing that you have this potential to be a positive ripple generator wherever you go. Whoever you're talking to, whatever your choices, whatever your actions, you have the potential to be this positive ripple generator. And most of us miss out on the opportunities because we're self-absorbed. We're thinking about our own problems or our own things we're excited about, or we're busy and we don't notice this thing. But the reality is it feels really good to do. And so it's not just one of the things that I'm really committed to is taking this making a difference out of the do-gooder realm and ensconcing it squarely in the self, I don't know about self-centered, but certainly self-interested realm, because it feels wonderful to, and every time you do it, you reinforce one of the things that I talk about is just the stories we tell, and how the stories we tell, I mean, that's what we do as humans, right? That's how we make sense of the world, is we tell a story about what this means. And one of the stories we tell that we don't realize we're telling is, I am someone who fills in the blank, right? This is our self-perception. And every time we do something that creates a positive ripple, it creates this self-perception of, I am somebody who makes a difference. I am somebody who creates positive ripples in the world. And that has a hugely positive impact on not just what happens out there, but how we feel about ourselves. And it's a super simple piece of the puzzle. I have one more. I have one more thought on that. I'm lying. I've got like a million more thoughts, but one more thing that I want to say on that. And anytime, jump in, because I can talk for hours about all of this stuff. Usually, I have to breathe, but not always. Uh, one of the things that I talk about is just the malleability of life, and not through big dramatic changes, but through the small things. And one of the ways that I describe it is through, are you familiar with pointillism?
A little bit,
So
yeah.
it's a school of painting back around the late 1800s, and they put dots of paint on the canvas, and you're up close, and it looks like a bunch of pieces of gum stuck to the canvas, and you go back, and there's a picture there. Um, and I think of taking a pointillist approach to life, and so using this making a difference piece, and experiencing yourself as somebody that makes a difference, um, and so every time you create a little positive ripple, however small, um, it, you're in the grocery store and you pay the checkout clerk a compliment, or even just are actually authentically present and there listening and seeing them. What a huge gift is that, right? Um, every time you do that, you add a little dot of paint on the canvas, and you're starting to paint a picture of your own self-perception of, I'm someone who makes a difference, and you're being able to tap into the positive effect that has just on us and how we feel, and both kind of the it feels good to help, and then also how we feel about ourselves, because who doesn't want to feel like somebody who's here to make the world a better place?
Absolutely, right. And to your point, it is such a small thing and yet such a big thing because so many people don't do it. They don't take the opportunities they have. They're looking for those massive opportunities when in reality, all we have is a bunch of little ones that can add up, which is why I love the title of your new work, Curt, right? Rain Ripple River makes so much beautiful sense to me. I really love that. Really, really
Thank
powerful.
you.
So one last question here. You talked about malleability, right? Being curious and positive and having good energy and being a mobile point of positive impact. And that is, give us one or two more small little things that we can do today to make a big difference maybe in years, but that we'll likely never know.
Um, yeah, well, I mean, it's anybody's guess what kind of difference it makes in years, but I'll give you one thing that off the top of my head, and then I'll just kind of roll and see where else my brain wants to go with it. Um, and I don't honestly know the degree to which this is like this ongoing thing. I'm just aware of what the experience for me is and what it often seems to be for the recipient. Um, you know how you go, you're you're going along the freeway, and you off ramp, and there's somebody who's uh, holding a sign, and you're just like, oh, I don't want to just stop and ignore this guy. I feel bad ignoring this guy, but I don't want to give him some money, right. And so it's just it's this weird thing, and I always feel like, it's I'm not I'm not aligned with who I perceive myself to be if I'm just like, I'm pretending this person isn't there. And so one of the things that I started doing is I create these homeless kits. And so I take a Ziploc bag, a gallon Ziploc bag, and I put a pair of socks and and a couple of bottles of water and some snacks and a toothbrush and toothpaste and dental floss, and all these things that people out there on the street need, and often don't have access to. And so just last week I was coming off an on ramp, and I realized that, and there was a stoplight at the bottom of the on ramp, and I realized I was like cheering for the guy to get to me before the light goes so that I can give him the and so how I approach it is I just hold it up and say, would this be something like this be helpful for you? Because I don't want to make it be something like, I know what they need or whatever. And always the answer is yes, but it's so often there is such a bright reaction to it, and such a um, and I don't think it's just what's there. I think it's the message that somebody cares and isn't just like taking the easy way out, or whatever it is. And every time I do that, I just come away going like, you get that little that happy glow from doing something positive. And and my partner as well, she'll come back, and I've loaded her car as well with these homeless kids, and she'll come back and tell me a story, and she'll make me cry. I'm, I'm okay. There it is. I was wondering if it would come as I was talking about this. And so it's just this super positive addition to the day, and it doesn't cost particularly much, and it gives me a way to change this uncomfortable engagement, because it's uncomfortable to have somebody who's homeless approach you and not be in a position to help for whatever reason, right? It turns it from that into this very positive experience for me, and it appears quite often for them as well. So that's one thing that I love to plant the seed. I love to plant the seed of that, just because my own personal experience with that has been so positive. Um, I think that I think that one of the things that can be really amazing is getting into the habit of, okay, I've got two things that are kind of related. One is getting into the habit of noticing what's good, and and that can be just calling attention to, here's something that's good that's happening. And people can take it or not, but I think that just being a voice of noticing the good it can open doors for people to say, oh yeah. And related to that, and perhaps even more powerful than that, is noticing specifically what's good about other people. And so this is kind of maybe the compliment experiment on steroids, in just really getting the lens, developing the lens for yourself to constantly be scanning for what's good about this person. What do I admire about this person? What can I reflect back that is positive that I see about this person? And and again, who doesn't like to hear that if it's authentic, right? And we so often just don't get that all that much. And maybe we're really lucky and we have a great boss, or a partner who's very complimentary, or whatever it is. But by and large, people are kind of wrapped up in their own lives, and that's natural. And so being a voice for what's good in you, it's like, if you're a voice for the good that you see in others, oh my goodness, right? And I know just from personal experience that when I get that, when somebody just says, here's what I see in you, and it's kind of this out of the blue thing, just it's like, oh yeah, that is the most amazing thing. So
That is beautiful.
and so all of those things are not things that you have to carve 3 hours on a Thursday night out to do some volunteering, or find money in your budget to write a check to whatever worthy cause. It's really just going through your everyday life with this lens for, where are the ripples that I have the potential to create, and where are the ripples that I'm already creating. Because I think that a lot of the times we don't really even notice that we're creating these positive ripples. And so another of the ways that we can shape our own experience of life is is noticing and savoring things. It's like, oh, this is this good thing. Are you familiar with are you familiar um, with the pardon me. This is part of my messy human. Well, I don't know if it's even imperfect. It's just part of my messy humanness. Is my eyes leak anytime anything touches me, um, positively or negatively. They're very hooked in to my emotion. Um, are you familiar with taking in the good? The practice of taking in the good. Uh,
I'm
so
not.
there is a guy by the name of a neurotherapist or some neuro something or other by the name of Rick Hansen, and he he talks about this practice called taking in the good, and it's this idea of, and it's based on, we as humans evolved with this what they call a negativity bias, where we are infinitely more likely to notice the bad stuff. The bad stuff, you can you go to performance review and you get 10 positive things and one negative thing. You go home and you're not ruminating on the positive things, right? It's the one negative thing that was there, and that is this negativity bias. And so he describes the human brain as Teflon for the good and Velcro for the bad, and which makes sense from an evolutionary perspective, so that you can avoid the things that want to kill you. But from a happiness and well-being on a day-to-day basis, not necessarily all that great. So he says, how do you get the good stuff to land better? And so there's this practice that he calls taking in the good, which is noticing something good. And it could be a beautiful sunset. It could be, I'm just really enjoying sitting here with my cup of coffee. It could be this compliment that I just got from Phil. Whatever it is. And instead of just letting it bounce off your brain, which is what usually happens, that's nice. Next, spend a little bit of time, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, just savoring it, really kind of doing the bellows with the fire, and getting some oxygen into it, and really experiencing it, and then moving on, going about your day. So it doesn't take a lot of time. And the idea is that the more you do that, the more it helps the good stuff land. And so then the more real estate the good stuff takes up in your brain. And I did this when I first read about this. The story I love to tell about it is, I at the time I was just feeling very, before we got on here, we were talking about exercise, and at the time I was just in this period of sloth, and it's like it was it was one of those periods where here in the Northwest it was just raining and raining and raining, and I think it was probably the year that we had like 90 days of rain straight. Yeah, it was brutal. And so I was just not wanting to get off the couch and go do some exercise, but it's like, I need to just go start taking a walk. And so I decided I would give it a name. I'm going to go take rain walks. And so I started taking my rain walks, and I started playing with this taking in the good idea. And I would notice the things that were beautiful and wonderful about walking in the rain. And whether it's just the feeling in the air, whether it's the lush greenness of the grass because of all of the water, whether it's the little drips on the naked branches. So all of these things about the positive of walking in the rain. And I kept doing that for a couple months. I'm looking outside in the morning, and it's raining, and I was planning on going for a walk in the afternoon. And when it came time to go for a walk, it had stopped raining. And I looked outside and I was like, oh, and I went, hang on. I think this taking in the good stuff really works, because it was, and I can still, I'll get irritated with the rain, or it's like, I can still consciously shift to that feeling of, oh, this is really nice, that created. So I think we have so much power to do that kind of thing as well.
Yeah. Well, that power that we have is a great place to wrap it up here, Curt, because I think we have so much more agency than we believe, that we
Absolutely.
understand, or that we can ever control. So just as Curt suggests, take in the good, savor what's happening to us, feel it, experience it, use the bellows to fan the flame and make it even better. Curt, your rainrippleriver.com blog is fantastic. I'm loving the articles there. I love what we talked about today. So much good stuff, from being kind to yourself to conditional enoughness. And what I'm going to say is, come on back, buddy. I love your heart. I appreciate you so much. And I'm so glad that you chose to spend an hour with me today, Curt. I'll see
Oh,
you soon, man.
so super fun.